So this is part three. We already talked about as far as the kind of the season, the fall, the winter, the main kind of marquee keystone aspects of it. You have the school, going back to school, transitioning back into the process of school, the routine of school, and then the second one was football. How do we navigate the kind of challenges that it presents schedule-wise, as well as from like a small group or from a family aspect. And then number three now is holidays. How do we navigate the holidays? And I think there's really two or three real main ways that this is going to affect your life. Number one is that it kind of circles back to school. Holidays means Christmas break, fall break, or Thanksgiving break. And it means that your kids are going to be off school for a limited time and then they're expected to go back. It means there's going to be testing. There's going to be a lot of those kind of things swirling around that aspect. So even though it's time off, oftentimes it's more stressful because you, as a grown adult, a parent, you have to go to work and you have to leave your kids at home and you don't know what they're doing, right? They're unsupervised for that period of time. It also, like, that's when the slams of the consumerism of our culture begins to hit, of, I mean, just driving into that holiday sales bump. So if you work retail, you're already building towards that, or you work in a retail sphere, you're already building towards those high volume sales marks. And they're hiring people, or people that are being hired now, they need to be trained. And I mean, you can feel your blood just kind of thickening as you think about it in some ways. But talk for the first one is Halloween. It's the end of October. And this is a controversial subject for Christians. I've talked a little bit about in a previous video, is do you celebrate it or not? And if you do celebrate it, do you just stay home, maybe get with your small group, be there, and then pass out candy to kids that come up to your door? Or do you not? Do you do the Christian church carnival thing? Is that what you do? Or no, those are sinful. Like gather with your Pentecostal fundamentalists and do a prayer meeting. Like, how do you go about this? One thing I think everyone can agree is November 1st candy sales are the most important part of it. But do you go to costume parties? Do you let your kids go to costume parties? Is dressing up okay? Is it inherently demonic? Like, there's so many questions to answer that you need to deal with on your own. The second holiday is Thanksgiving, and I think Thanksgiving and Christmas hold this one very key common thread between them, is that you probably are seeing members of your family you haven't seen since the last time those events occurred. You haven't seen them since then, and the reason for that is you don't want to see them. Maybe they have archaic views of the way that certain cultural minorities should be treated, or maybe they give you a hard time for not having kids yet, or having had kids already, or where's your career track going, and they ask you these hard questions about where your life is, where it's going, and all of that, and you don't know how to answer those questions necessarily, or why you haven't gone to college yet, what's your career, when are you going to get married. So you avoid them, typically, but we're obligated to go around them sometimes, right, during these specific times, and that's stressful. Um, or if you live in a kind of a poor context, holidays are very stressful for parents because the expectation of buying things for your kids when you're struggling to put food on the table, and that kind of condescension that can kind of feel, or that self-condemnation. So how do you navigate all of that? I think the number one, the most important thing about it to kind of get through it is more integration with your church body or your small group or both. More, not less. You need to be engaging with those people, talking with them, being honest with your emotions so that you can um, kind of handle them in a more healthy way rather than trying to hide them or push them down, repress them so that they just, because I mean, if you bury them, they're just going to come back as an undead thing that um, rots in the open. So uh, you need more, even though the chaos of the schedule, even though it is difficult and going in and out of town and whatever, even though it's harder, yes, you need to make more effort, not less. And of course, do not neglect your spiritual disciplines just because you're out of school, just because you're in testing phase or whatever is not an excuse to put the really important things to the side. You need to keep those things in the middle. And number three is really just don't neglect each other. If you're in a family, be asking lots of questions between all of your family members about what you feel, what you think, and it's okay to feel, but you need to control your feelings. It's okay to think, but you need to control your thoughts. Just make them obedient to the will of Christ. So, I hope that's helpful. If you got tips, maybe leave them, or if you disagree, leave that. And I just finished 13 Reasons Why, the third season, and so I've got some thoughts about that that are probably coming up maybe next week. We'll see. And peace.